Well, welcome everyone to our Power, Mobility and Convenience Conference. You may know this as the Forecourt Conference. You've run it before, but well, you'll hear during the day how we want to really change and move this debate on from being into much more about how a vehicle is going to be powered into the future. What's the strategy going to be for households and for the government in terms of mobility? And of course, how important is convenience going to be in those locations in that changing world? And this event tries to bring all of that together, tries to share some of the latest thinking, some of the most innovative, challenging thinking on what's happening with power, mobility and convenience. So thank you all very much indeed for joining. I'm James Lohman. I'm Chief Executive of the Association of Convenience Stores. And a year ago, pretty much exactly, we were in Leicester, I think it was. And we had a physical conference. We were all together, and we had all the benefits of chatting to each other. Had cups of tea. We were had a nice lunch. We were brought people together. Had live debate. People standing with a microphone at the back of the room and asking a question. All those sorts of things. But of course, that's not how conferences are these days. At the moment, we still, and for the foreseeable future, we have to find different ways to come together, to share information, yes, but also to network and engage with one another. And that doesn't have to stop just because we're not physically in Leicester or anywhere else. So we really hope you'll get everything you got out of last year's conference out of today's event as well. And you can relax. We've done this before. We're working with experts in terms of the technical side and bringing this together. We've worked already with breakout rooms, which we'll see at the end. And at the end of the session, we'll talk about how you get involved in those breakout rooms, and they work really well. And of course, we've done presentations, webinars, discussions, debates online. Really, for the last few months, we've been doing this during this time, and they've gone down really, really well. So relax, enjoy, and take part just like you would if it was a physical conference, all being together in the same place. I mentioned how we've really invested in this event, in the tech behind it, and in the way you try to put it together. That wouldn't have been possible without support from Ubermarket, who are our sponsors for today. And I'm delighted, as I said, you'll be hearing from Will later in the day to hear about what they do. But thank you very much, Will. Thanks to Ubermarket for sponsoring and supporting this event. So the context of this conference, of course, is the coronavirus crisis. And we've seen generally the convenience store sector trade quite well through the coronavirus crisis. Footfall steady, maybe even slightly down, average basket spend way up in most stores. But there are parts of the convenience sector that have not had the same experience, and people operating petrol forecourts have been chief among them, because obviously the forecourt business driven off footfall generated by people driving and filling up their cars. Well, obviously that has changed significantly over this period of time. I'm pleased to say things have recovered. People are moving around more now. I think from this Saturday, the 4th of July, we'll see more people moving around as hospitality starts to open up. So hopefully, we start to see that continuing to grow. But nonetheless, it's been a tough time for the forecourt sector in terms of the fuel side of the business, that main footfall driver. But still, many forecourts have done extremely well over this time in terms of their shop sales, and really seen how the investment that we've made into our convenience offering has really benefited the forecourt sector over this time. So we'll discuss that during the day as well. So our first session is going to look at power and mobility and the future of power and mobility. And it's such an important debate to be having. It's such a strategically critical issue at the moment. Obviously, government driving plans towards a more rapid move towards electric vehicles and alternative fuels, and consumers increasingly moving in that direction as well. So what does this all mean for us? We'll hear from Ed, our Government Relations Director, talking about the political developments. We'll hear from Xavier Airy, from Boston Consulting Group, about how they see these issues playing out on a global basis, and from Stuart Groves, his colleague at Boston Consulting Group as well. And then from Jerry Stokes, Executive Chairman of GridServe, particularly talking about electric vehicles and about charging facilities based on solar. So really fascinating first session there. I'm really looking forward to hearing about that and to hearing your questions, which I'll come on to in just a second. Throughout the day, we're going to be consulting our retailer panel. So we're delighted to have Nadine, Kurt, and David, 3 different types of businesses, but all big parts of this sector that we're in. And they'll be reflecting on all the presentations, including that first session, and giving their opinions, their thoughts, and their sense, I suppose, of how applicable a lot of the discussions we're having are. What's it really going to mean in terms of retailers on the forecourt today? So we'll be going back to them a few times during the day, and delighted to have Nadine, Kurt, and David taking part. And then in the afternoon, we go on to looking a little bit more about the future of convenience on the forecourt. And there we're delighted to have Will Broom, founder and CEO of Uber Market, to talk about how they see the future of people shopping for food and shopping for other products in convenience stores on forecourts, how they see that future developing, and particularly the role of technology in that future. So how do you need to get involved? At the bottom of your screen, you should see a place there where you can type in questions and comments, and we'll pick up and respond to those questions as much as we possibly can during the day. So please ask your questions. We're really keen to have your involvement and to make this as interactive as possible, even more so than it would be if we were all together in a conference room. Maybe easy to ask questions on your computer rather than stand up in front of a room of a couple of hundred people. So really keen to get your involvement, and please do send in your questions. And then afterwards, we're going to our networking rooms. So we run 2 sessions, 4 rooms. We'll explain a bit more at a time, but we're splitting the presenters and the participants in this conference to sort of host and be part of those rooms. So you can engage with them, ask them questions about presentations, ask them questions about anything, but also engage with your other delegates who are taking part in those rooms. So hopefully with that, we get a really good discussion, building not just understanding and debating the issues, but also hopefully building relationships and networking, just like you would over a cup of tea and a donut or whatever we'd have on offer if we were running this as a physical conference. So really, we know these work really well. It's a great way of discussing issues in slightly smaller groups. So do go into those rooms and take the full opportunity to network and discuss with colleagues in the sector. So use the buttons on the screen below the chat box to enter the room. You'll be able to see how you can click on the room to go into, and then you can take part in those discussions there. So I hope that gives you an introduction, explains what we're going to be doing today. We're really excited about this event, really excited about all the speakers and participants that we have. So thank you all very much for taking part. And yeah, let's kick off the conference. So delighted to introduce our first speaker, my colleague Ed Woodall, Government Relations Director at ACS, to talk particularly about the government's view of Road to Zero and the issues we're discussing today.
Hello, I'm Ed. I'm Government Relations Director at ACS. And this morning in my presentation, I'm going to take you through a bit of the policy context around electric vehicles, the government's political outlook after COVID-19, and leave you with some questions and thoughts for today for your further discussion. So just starting off on some reflections around the impact of the outbreak of COVID on the sector. Obviously, as with most things, it hasn't equally impacted everyone. If you're an urban or village or rural sites, you're likely to see sales increase. But if you're a forecourt, city centre or transport hub, you've probably seen sales decline and footfall decline because of the reliance on transient customers. And that's really a direct result of the changes in the government's policy around lockdown measures. We see from this data, which we'll be very familiar with, that motor vehicle use has dropped considerably through March as the government's lockdown measures came on, and stayed at the bottom through April, and then gathered pace as people gained more confidence and lockdown measures were eased. And obviously the fuel volume trend has matched this pattern almost exactly as you would expect. So that's been a very challenging business environment. Underpinning all of this is obviously a huge amount of business support from the government to keep the economy rolling as we've had the outbreak, and that includes things like cash grant schemes, business rates holiday, and the job retention scheme. Now, lots of people in the sector have used these measures, but not so much as many other businesses that have been shut for the duration of the outbreak. But they're still obviously very relevant for maintaining the economy. So looking at how retailers have used them, the most relevant ones have been around cash grants and business rates holidays. And we have been campaigning and lobbying to try and ensure that the government increases the threshold for business rates, support measures and cash grants, which are currently capped at 51,000 rateable value, but obviously forecourt retailers, fuel retailers, rateable values are much higher. So we continue to push for that as the government reviews these policies. So moving on and looking at the the sort of government and policy outlook on these issues, I think it's interesting to look at how much support the government have secured during this time from the public for relatively unprecedented interventions and borrowing to sustain the economy. You can see from this YouGov tracker that there's lots of support from the government at the beginning, and it slowly trails off. But I think this is actually more about their management as opposed to their in terms of the actual policies that they've introduced. And this introduces an interesting dilemma for how we are governed in the future, because this is a government that essentially would be ideologically opposed and a public that would be opposed to these measures in normal times, but they've accepted them now, and I think it will change how people perceive the role of government and government perceives its own role. So I think that will start in terms of a realignment with a political realignment within the Conservative Party and the Conservative government about state intervention and borrowing. I think it has to, because what's the point in being a fiscal conservative, which is what they've traded on to being government for so long, if you've borrowed £100 billion plus to underpin the economy. That means that they'll have to review their outlook on both state intervention and borrowing. I also think it will mean that there will be less trust in markets to deliver the best solutions, and that governments will want to intervene more on complex issues like climate change and public health and social care. I think the pandemic was something that was arguably predicted, but most governments have been found wanting in terms of their preparation. They won't want that to happen again on these other complex matters. And in many ways, this is already playing out in terms of the strategic policy issues for the fuel and convenience sector on things like obesity and alcohol policy, which are rising up the agenda hugely, employment issues around critical workers and how they're paid, how much they're paid, and the quality of work they have access to, and of course delivering a sustainable recovery, which for the government really looks like a transition, an approach to transport measures around electric vehicles and a transition to zero carbon economy, which I'll talk lots more about in a moment. One final thing I wanted to pick up on was about business accountability and some interesting data here from the Centre for Progressive Policy on a desire for the public to have more accountability, more requirements on business to act in the interest of society as a result of the government support that they've received. And I think there's some parallels here between what happened with the financial crisis and what has happened now, that businesses will be held to account about how they operate in future on the basis of the support they've been given by the taxpayer and the state. Looking ahead, all of these things we will find out more about if I'm right or wrong, or if there's something completely new in the coming year through a number of different events. So we've got a fiscal event coming up in a few weeks where the Chancellor will stand up again and make some more announcements and support measures. We've got the reopening of the economy and what that means for consumer confidence. We're going to have an autumn budget when the government have more data around the impact and cost of what they've done and make some new announcements. And finally, we've got our next challenge, which is EU exit, which the government is very clearly going ahead with. There's no extension to the transition. And of course, all of those things are underpinned and dependent on the current R rate and the level of risk in society from the virus. So let's look at what this means in terms of the sustainable recovery and the government's challenges, a grand challenge, in fact, around the future of mobility. And I've updated this group before on a number of these strategies, and they have essentially rolled on since we've last updated you. So I want to give you a bit of a review of what's happening here. There's going to be a consultation on the 2035 target for the ban of petrol and diesel vehicle and hybrid vehicles. Whether that should be 2035 or whether it should be 2040. There'll be a consultation on the introduction of E10 in 2021. That's happened, and it will be coming forward in 2021. There's the new strategy, which I want to go into in more detail, the Transport Decarbonisation Strategy, which is essentially the government's implementation plan for all of these different issues. And also mention that we're hosting the UN COP26 in November in Glasgow, where I think all of these different strategies and policies and ambitions from the government are going to come together in one place. So there's a lot of commitment from the government to take action on the future of mobility and their zero carbon target and a transition to electric vehicles. The main area I want to focus on is, of course, this decarbonising transport strategy. This is their government's implementation plan. And, there are 7 different parts to this strategy, but I think the most relevant one for us is decarbonisation of road vehicles And it looks at a number of different things around regulatory framework, market conditions, and refueling and recharging infrastructure in the UK. And it's really a look at how the government will try and deliver that. And clearly, their focus is around delivering on a rapid charge infrastructure for electric vehicles. And that was demonstrated by Grant Shapps at one of the daily press briefings, announcing this new strategy, which has some very ambitious targets about putting fast charge points on 6 high-powered fast charge points at motorway service areas in England, and then increasing that across the motorway and major A road network in 2030, and of course increasing the volume over time up to 2035. I think the key thing here is not just those targets. We're very familiar with the government issuing lots of these targets. Is actually the hint in this strategy that there'll be a consultation on the powers available in the Automated Electric Vehicles Act to require large fuel retailers to host electric vehicle charging points on their sites. Now, the key thing here is that we think that's really challenging because, that you could end up with an arbitrary definition around the size of a site, the number of parking spaces, the fuel volumes that go through that mean nothing about where the most important place is to put an electric vehicle charging point. There's got to be a strategic approach that looks at consumer needs and relevance to sites before we do it, and also understand how people are going to charge in the future. So where are we now in this strategy and the transition objectives they've put out in there? I've talked about the regulatory framework in terms of the Automated Electric Vehicles Act. There's also some provisions in there about consistency of electric vehicle charging points around credit and debit card payments being available for all new charge points. I think the key things around strong consumer base, market conditions and vehicle supply are key. This is about essentially how many vehicles are out there, what the appetite is there from consumers to buy these vehicles and support for them to buy these vehicles and have the charging equipment. And there's £2.5 billion worth of grants for vehicles to be purchased and for grants for home charging out there. But how can we extend this further to show that there is a market for us to make the necessary investments in the infrastructure? And finally, that recharging infrastructure being focused on the strategic network. There's nearly 18,000 charging points across the country and 230 electric vehicle users. How do we match that up better and make it better for everyone that is transitioning across to electric vehicles? So there's still a long way to go. And I think for me and ACS, the challenge is to take away some of these key questions to government and get them to answer them around consumers' desire to transition to electric vehicles and what more can be done. 17% of people are only considering replacing their car or van with a hybrid, and only 5% would replace it with an electric vehicle. That needs to change if this market is going to be viable for everyone to invest in. Support for investment, the government have announced £500 million worth of funding over the next 5 years, quite a number of times now. We actually need to see that out in the market and it being easily accessible for fuel retailers to deliver investments on their sites. And of course, certainty around this regulatory environment, a clear framework for delivering electric vehicle infrastructure, and as much as possible trying to work with businesses to invest as opposed to forcing them to invest potentially in the wrong places. So that's a very quick run through of some of the issues that are out there at the moment. There's some key milestones here around those consultations on the 2035 target, the transport decarbonisation strategy, COP26, where I think all of these measures will be announced. And of course, the introduction of E10 in 2021 is a key challenge for all of us to contend with, and we'll give you more information when we have it. That's it. That's my update. We'd really like to hear more from you. Please get in contact with me and Eleanor, who leads on our fuel policy issues. Please drop us an email on this presentation or anything else you'd like to discuss. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much indeed, Ed. And remember, you can ask Ed and all the speakers during the day questions using the bar at the bottom of the screen. And then those questions will get addressed in the breakout rooms at the end of the day. And obviously, you'll have a chance to discuss those and explore all those issues in more detail. So please do that for all of the speakers. Our next speakers are Stuart Groves, who's Managing Director, and Xavier Airy, who's downstream fuel expert, both working for the Boston Consulting Group, who are one of the world's leading analysts, commentators and experts on these very important issues. So absolutely delighted to have Boston Consulting Group with us. So welcome, Stuart and Xavier.
Hello, my name is Stuart Groves. I'm a Managing Director and Partner at Boston Consulting Group. I lead BCG's global B2B and B2C business line in oil and gas, which includes retail, lubricants, and aviation. As a background on myself, I started my career 25 years ago working on the development of hydrogen fuel cell cars. For the past 15 years, I've been working in consulting, where I've focused on oil and gas. As a brief background on BCG, BCG is a global management consulting firm covering multiple industries. Within oil and gas, we work for most of the super majors and IOCs. We're very excited at the opportunity to speak to you today at the conference. My colleague Xavier Harry and I will discuss key trends impacting fuel retail and the associated risks and opportunities. We will also review how fuel retailers can win in the future. Xavier will introduce himself separately. Today, fuel retail is facing three major disruptions. Number one, there's an increasing demand for alternative fuels, such as batteries, hydrogen, and biofuels. Number two, there's a significant rise in advanced mobility solutions, including shared mobility services such as Uber and autonomous vehicles. And number three, there's evolving consumer expectations. These include increased demands for healthy food, speed and hassle-free experiences, and last-mile delivery services. Digital is very much accelerating and enabling many of these disruptions. Overall, we believe these disruptions will drive down traditional fuel volumes and increase the competition for convenience services. This unprecedented level of disruption raises questions on how the future will look for fuel retailers in 10 to 15 years. BCG itself has conducted an in-depth study of the fuel retail industry, detailing 4 very different market environments or scenarios that are likely to emerge around the world, each defined by changes in mobility and consumer lifestyles. Fuel retailers can use these market environment scenarios to analyze how their business might fare in the years ahead under different conditions, and to position themselves to adapt over the short, medium, and longer terms. In scenario number 1, fossil fuels still remain dominant with more limited EV penetration. Scenario number 4 varies quite considerably from this. In this scenario, EVs and AVs dominate with traditional fossil fuels all but disappearing. Moreover, digital is at the core of consumer lifestyle and mobility choices within scenario 4. And even though there are wide differences between the scenarios, under all scenarios, a significant share of the fuel retail network could be unprofitable by 2035. This occurs even in the scenarios in which new mobility models are less disruptive and fossil fuel sales do not decline significantly. Our strong view is a do-nothing response by fuel retailers will result in substantial impact on profitability, with half the network at risk already by scenario 2. In our view, there is no doubt that there are substantial risks to profitability. At the same time, we believe there are significant opportunities for fuel retailers who are willing to transform. We would like to share a video with you that provides a view of this future. After this video, my colleague Xavier will share more details on the opportunities.
By the 2030s, the world will be very different. More than a third of new cars sold in large cities will be electric, and a large proportion fully autonomous. An estimated 20% of total mobility in cities will be shared or on demand. Convenience and personalization will form the core of every consumer experience. Disruptive technologies like drones and robotics will have transformed last-mile delivery. And in this new world, fuel retailers are set to be left behind. With fuel demand projected to plunge by 30 to 60%, more than half of all these businesses are at risk of being unprofitable in the not-so-far future in many countries. While highway fuel stations will continue to service large hubs, smaller urban stations that cannot diversify will all but disappear. So what can they do to remain competitive and prepare for the coming storm? The 2030s will see the goods movement value pool expand by up to 4 times its current size, and the people movement pool by up to 7 times. This means that fuel retailers must widen their role in the ecosystem by entering adjacent business sectors such as advanced mobility, last-mile logistics, and new real estate plays. By doing so, they can capture new customers, increase the number of touch points they have with their existing customer base, and shift their focus from vehicles to consumers. Hence, the service station evolves to become a service hub. Fuel retailers can future-proof themselves by introducing new digital and cloud-based innovations. They could offer ultra-fast charging within a service station or anywhere else according to the city infrastructure. The service station of the future must become a multi-purpose destination that customers actually want to visit, offering a broad range of curated products and services and a seamlessly immersive experience that straddles the physical and digital realms. Fuel retailers can enter the last-mile delivery space by leveraging strategically located micro-hub warehouses and fleets of fully autonomous vehicles. They can even expand their operations further by acquiring electric charging spaces and offering overnight parking and AV charging and other maintenance services. Fuel retail and the format of the service station in the 2030s look very different from today. But for retailers willing to innovate and adapt to a rapidly changing mobility industry, it's a world of opportunity.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Hello, my name is Xavieri. I am a project leader at Boston Consulting Group, supporting our global B2B, B2C business line in oil and gas. Before joining BCG in 2019, I spent 23 years in a downstream oil value chain with Mobil, BP and Shell. I have been working in France, the UK, the Middle East and South Asia. My expertise is in fuel retailing, oil products trading and aviation fuels marketing. Before the video, Stuart showed how traditional fuel retailers' business could become at risk due to the emergence of new trends. So what can fuel retailers do to survive and thrive in the new environment? Fuel retailers' traditional business model focusing on the vehicle value pool is being challenged. The 2030s will see the goods movement value pool expand by up to 3 times its current size, driven by advanced C-store, last-mile delivery, lifestyle services. And the people movement value pool expand by up to 7 times, thanks to connected cars and on-demand mobility. Expanding into the goods and people mobility value pools is needed to compensate for the loss of traditional sources of revenues, regardless of the projected market scenarios. Current focus on car refueling, car wash and maintenance, in addition to standard C-store offering, will no longer be enough. A shift is required from a vehicle-focused to a customer-centric approach in order to capture value in adjacent spaces. But how? By developing relationships with existing customers and target new customer segments. By investing in new physical and digital assets in and outside service stations. By partnering, integrating and/or competing with new players in adjacent ecosystems and value chains. Fuel retailers must widen their role in the ecosystem by entering adjacent business sectors such as advanced mobility, last mile and logistics, and new real estate plays. By doing so, they can attract new customers and increase the number of touchpoints they have with their customer base. How the service station will evolve and at which pace will depend on specific market conditions. However, leading players will be those able to differentiate their core offering and diversify into adjacent areas. In advanced markets, we are already seeing a number of fuel retailers who are on this journey. Leveraging data and technology, they are increasing the number of customer touchpoints by developing omnichannel strategies for C-store, investing into mobile fuel delivery, partnering for last-mile logistics, digitalizing and truly personalizing the customer journey. To conclude this presentation, the level of disruptions facing fuel retail is such that a major shift is required to ensure profitability longer term. By becoming truly customer-centric and by expanding into growing value pools such as people and goods mobility, fuel retailers can compensate for the decline in their traditional fuels business. Whilst change is required, the approach and intensity of the change will be different by markets. Thank you for your attention. We are looking forward to answering your questions in the networking sessions.
Stuart, Xavier, thank you so much. That's absolutely brilliant. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions, so don't forget to ask them those questions in the bar at the bottom of the screen. And now, delighted to introduce our next speaker, Jerry Stokes, Executive Chairman of GridServe, who are particular leaders in terms of solar energy and electric vehicle charging. So really looking forward to hearing what Jerry's got to say. Welcome, Jerry.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of talking about the future of electric vehicle charging. As you've heard, I'm Jerry Stokes, Executive Chairman of GridServe Sustainable Energy. So GridServe are a cutting-edge sustainable energy solutions for critical power infrastructure company. We're split into three key operating areas. One is grid power, where we're building utility-scale, subsidy-free hybrid solar farms, combining solar and batteries. EV power, which is a network of electric forecourts that will revolutionize the charging of electric vehicles. And remote power, based around our solar energy center solutions, which enable clean, dependable power anywhere. And we really are at the forefront of delivering solutions to profitably transition our energy infrastructure away from fossil fuels and reach net zero carbon emissions as quickly as possible. We develop, engineer, procure, construct, operate, manage, and maintain all of the assets that we're building. So we're a full service company. We recently completed the UK's most advanced solar energy system, which was built on 198 acres of land in York, and it contains 91,000 solar modules, which are bifacial, so they generate energy from the front and the back surfaces. They're mounted on single axis trackers, so they follow the sun from sunrise in the east to sunset in the west, and they're connected up to 11 40-foot containers of batteries. And this will provide enough power to power 18,000 electric vehicles or 13,000 households every year for the next 30 years. So we have a real experience in combining solar with batteries and on very large scale. Today, the future of transportation, it's clear, is electric, powered by clean, sustainable, and importantly, renewable energy. Today's public charging infrastructure will need to be rapidly improved to cater for the significant number of electric vehicles that are coming to the market. And this is just a quick overview of some of the 350 new EV models that are going to be coming to the market by 2025. There are, of course, a lot of premium EV models that are scheduled to come into the market during this year globally. But importantly, there are mass market EVs also coming. So it won't just be the very high-end cars that are electrified. So there really will be price points across the whole range of electric vehicles coming into the market. So this is a true market opportunity for all consumers. At the same time, last mile delivery, lean and green as we like to think of it, is now a reality, and there are an increasing number of fully electric last mile delivery vehicles coming to the market. Electric buses are now becoming also prevalent across Europe, and particularly important where cities are introducing ultra low emission and clean air zones. And all other areas of utility vehicles are also now being electrified. So the electric revolution is really with us for every single aspect of mobility. I haven't talked in this slide in these slides about motorbikes or e-bikes and others, but clearly they are part of the total picture for e-mobility solutions. But the key thing is, where are they going to charge? And home charging obviously is quite convenient. Destination charging, for example, at the workplace, in parks or at supermarkets, is also quite helpful. But the reality is that there are over 40% of people who don't have off-street parking, which means it's very limited for home charging. And therefore, public charging is a really critical part of the piece for enabling people to enter into electric mobility and to have electric vehicles. And GridServe is seeking to radically transform this experience of using electric vehicles by delivering a UK-wide, sustainable, energy-powered, affordable network of ultra-convenient, customer-focused electric forecourts. And very significantly, they will allow rapid charging for all electric vehicles and deliver an awesome customer experience. So mass market EV adoption by fleets will require reliable, rapid charging infrastructure, which is currently the weakest link. And just this slide shows that if you're charging at home, typically that will be a 3 kilowatt or 7 kilowatt charger. And that's absolutely fine if you can charge your vehicle up overnight. But we recognize that the mass adoption of EVs will require people who are either road warriors or who are on long journeys, or they're delivery companies with high mileage. They don't have the luxury of being able to charge overnight. The so-called rapid chargers that are currently available, 50 kilowatt rated, will put about 50 miles of range into a vehicle in 20 minutes, which may be fine for a lot of applications and for a lot of users. But GridServe's proposition is to actually use the latest generation of chargers to charge at the fastest possible rate. And that means being able to charge at up to 350 miles of added range within as little as 20 minutes. Now, this will enable people to really have dependable and reliable, low-cost, high-power charging at a level which gives them the confidence that when they're on a long journey, they don't need to spend 1 or 2 or 3 hours waiting to charge their vehicle to continue on their way. Where these are located is going to be a critical part of making sure that they're convenient for every user. And so, the future of EV charging from GridServe's perspective is that it must be convenient, reliable, dependable, and economic. And the GridServe electric forecourt wants to make a great charging experience and a great customer experience. The first site that we're building is in Braintree and Essex. It's under construction right now and will be completed during Q3 this year. And we have applied for planning for 2 other sites in Norwich and Uckfield, and we have a fleet of other sites that are at various stages of development. But the reason we chose Braintree for this first site, the image on the left shows that we've reviewed over 6,000 different sites, taking into consideration grid data, road traffic data, and others. That's narrowed it down to around 100 sites where there is also availability to connect to the grid. And as I said, this first site is under construction in Braintree and Essex. And critical for us was to ensure that there was a high number of a large population in the nearby area, together with a high traffic flow, together with access to the grid to enable us to be able to charge multiple vehicles very quickly. So this is what the first electric forecourt will look like. It's designed for the modern age and will make owning and operating an electric vehicle an enjoyable, ultra convenient and stress-free experience. You can see a solar canopy here, which provides some of the power for the site. And you can see on the left-hand side at the back, there are batteries which provide an interface between the grid connection and the charging. And at the back, there is a building which houses convenience retail together with an EV experience center. So what we recognize is that if you're going to be sat for 20 or so minutes, it's really important that there's something for the drivers to be able to do and to relax and be able to use their time. And so a coffee shop, airport style lounge, and high-speed internet are absolutely essential. So again, a graphic of the building. This is using modern methods of construction. It's off-site manufactured. Lower floor will have space for convenience retail, coffee shop, etc. Upstairs, there'll be like an airport lounge, somewhere to relax. And so it's taking it to recognizing really that if people are there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 or 50 minutes, they want somewhere to relax. They want to be able to use that time effectively and efficiently. And that's why I think there's a great interest for the Association of Convenience Store members to consider how they could benefit from these kind of locations, because these will all be greenfield sites and they will all be therefore new opportunities for convenience store operators. Upstairs, there will be also an area for a car showroom, effectively an EV experience center. So people will be able to come and learn about electric vehicles and then take vehicles out for test drives. So this is a fly-through of the actual building that we're making at Braintree, the first electric forecourt. And what you can see is a solar canopy, which provides some of the power to the site. We're just going to zoom out to take the journey that a driver will take as they come onto the site. So lots of signage, plenty of space. As I'd stress, this is a completely greenfield site. And what you have in the middle area is the very high power chargers. These will be 350 kilowatt chargers. in the red bays. Very wide bays, plenty of space for cars to get in and out without all that hassle of reversing and worrying about space and bumping into people. And then behind really is the flagship building, this 2-story building that is off-site manufactured using modern methods of construction, solar modules on the roof. And on the ground floor, it has a convenience retail and coffee shop. And in the upstairs, there is an EV experience center. There are meeting rooms that people can book. There is a small fitness area and an airport style lounge. And so this is really trying to recognize that if you're charging your car for between 20 and 50 minutes, you really want somewhere to be able to relax, to use that time effectively and efficiently. The bottom right-hand side are batteries, which provide a buffer between the vehicle, the charging center, the electric forecourt, and the grid. And there are, of course, spaces for people who are not going to be charging, who just want to be able to rest and refresh. And then as we come round onto the right-hand side of the building, you'll see that there is a lane here on the right, which is where either HGVs, high-sided vehicles, or people who are towing will be able to charge. Up to 24 vehicles will be able to charge simultaneously at up to 350 kilowatts. So that means there's a very good footfall through the site. On the right-hand side, we have an area where, again, people can relax, and there'll be some slower charges for some of the vehicles that are unable to take advantage of that fast charging. So we see that the electric forecourt, this first one in Braintree in Essex, is going to be really a template for a network that we're going to build of over 100 across the UK. We'd be delighted to engage with members of the ACS to talk about opportunities for convenience stores on our electric forecourts. I'm Jerry Stokes at GridServe, and my contact details are at the bottom of this slide. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much indeed, Jerry. I know people have questions for Jerry, so please ask them in the bar at the bottom of the screen, and then we'll pick them up in the breakout rooms at the end of the day. So one of the things he wanted to do with the Power Mobility and Convenience Conference was to have a panel of retail experts and retailers who are in the stores day after day, really talking about what we're talking about and what it means for the sector in reality. So we're delighted to have Nadine Stacey, Head of UK Retail Operations for Apple Green, David Perks, also Head of UK Retail Operations for BP, and Kurt Williams, who runs 10 forecourts, owns and runs 10 forecourts in South Wales. So a great mix of people with perspectives on these issues. So they can provide some feedback through this panel discussion that we're going to go to now, and they'll come back after the break and then into the afternoon session as well, and they'll be part of those breakout rooms. So thanks very much to Nadine, David and Kurt for making such a contribution to this event. And now looking forward to our first panel discussion.
There we go.
Hi, everyone. Great to have you taking part. And so thanks again for getting involved. Fascinating first few presentations. So welcome, Nadine, David, and Kurt. To start off, I'll start with you, Nadine, then go to you, David, and then Kurt. Just tell us a little bit of the headlines about how business has been over the last few weeks. What's been the story for Apple Green, Nadine?
I think it's been very similar to the rest of the forecourt sector. So as we've seen, we started off initially, 70% down on fuel volume, depending on where our sites were located, depending on how the COVID-19 affected those sites. So we've seen huge sales in alcohol, and as we've all discussed in the past, I think a lot of that is down to location, whether or not they're rural, village locations. Transient sites slightly different, benefited on transient sites because a lot of the food offers open, etc. on the A1 weren't open, so our hot food sales went through the roof, and it was probably one of the only places where you could grab a Costa. So we saw coffee sales very strong, and so overall it's been great. It's actually been quite liberating to look at retail again, and we've definitely got our retail hats on at the moment.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Nadine. David, what's the sort of top line summary for BP retail over the last few weeks?
Very similar. Obviously, the decline in fuel was always going to be obvious, up to sort of 70% in the sort of the early days, which is obviously started to recover. 50% drop in footfall, but almost entirely being offset by the increase in basket spend and basket sizes. Very similar in terms of the category performance, alcohol, grocery. And I guess that's kind of for our last mile customers, our convenience customers, has been kind of a real sort of lifeline for our local communities, particularly in the urban areas. That's been really critical and valuable for our local customers. And we've certainly been able to offset pretty much all of our footfall decline with the increase in basket size.
Fantastic. Kurt, what's the picture for you? Similar again?
I'm afraid so. I'm not afraid. I think my business personally has been fantastic. Even though my fuel volume has been down, my shop sales have gone through the roof. I mean, we had customers come in and spend over £100. We've done click and collect. We've done delivery services to homes. And we got people telling us now they're going to use us in the future as well, regular, especially elderly people. We've got a lot of older people, the older generation, and they think we're marvellous. We've been competitive on price. We haven't put prices up or anything, which I think is important. And because the forecourt has been not so busy, people approach us and think, oh, I got room to park. I'll jump in, I'll get my things. Because I've always found that if a forecourt is really busy, unless you've got a massive parking space, people say, oh, I can't go there now. I'll just carry on. Because in the past, when our fuel sales have been down, our shop sales have always been up. And when our fuel sales have been up, the shop sales have gone down because people approach, oh, they're so busy, I don't want to stop. But with the reduction in fuel, we just can't believe how busy the shop is. And we put new lines in, like fresh meat and fresh this and fresh fruit and our hot food, like Nadine said. I mean, with all the Greggs closed, and all our hot food is just, again, it's just crazy. You just can't keep it on the shelves. Brilliant, you know. And once the builders started coming back, which they did a few weeks ago, they went mad because Greggs are still closed at the moment, I believe, and McDonald's is closed, and all those people, even though they've got drive-through starting now. But and the queues at the McDonald's drive in there 30, 40 minutes just to get a burger now, which I would never do, but there we are. But people are coming to us and they can get a nice fresh bacon roll or a burger, or the alcohol, like Nadine said, our alcohol sales is just, we can't keep it on the shelves. It's just mad, which is great. So I don't know whether, I know it's terrible what's gone on, but it's crazy how something can change your business overnight, you know.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. And we'll touch on some of the shop issues actually later on. We hear from some other presenters. So hold all that is really, really interesting and good to hear good news. Yeah. But I want to talk about the fuels issues. And actually, we previously called this company, talked about the future of fuels, but it's now much more about power and mobility, isn't it? It's much broader. And obviously, Boston Consulting Group and GridServe, they're really giving us a context, and they're talking about the politics around this. David, I'll start with you. What's your framework for thinking about the future here? There's so many moving parts, but how do you start to address these issues?
Well, I think you just said it. There's multiple complex issues playing out here, and I think that's part of the challenges that I think we'll all face over the coming years. We've got the comment there around fossil fuels still being strong, so that will continue to still be strong. Clearly, the EV market is growing and potentially will accelerate as well. I think people are, particularly through COVID, reassessing how they work and how they move as well. And I think that's another moving part that is yet still to play out as kind of lockdown decreases as well. So I still think that there's still a number of moving parts that need to be considered with this. But I also think it's a blended approach for this. And I think there's opportunities there for whether you're in an urban area, whether you're in a pure transit area, or even maybe a multiple mission type scenario. So I think I still believe it's a blended approach that will need to be thought through, and I guess that will certainly play out in terms of where people see their assets sort of either staying as they are or changing over time as well. I think will be a critical factor to consider. Yeah,
Nadine, you got interesting sense of this. Obviously, sites on motorway service stations, some more traditional neighbourhood stores, some more transient stores, pretty much the whole mix, I think, within Apple Green types of location. What do you think the future looks like? All types of power available, or will you back one horse in this, or how will you make that offer as people start to power their vehicles in different ways?
I think the bottom line here is that the customer is going to shape the way that we do things in the future at Apple Green. And I think that's what we've got to listen to, and that's what we've got to assess. We've come a long way in the last 5 years, because my previous experience was with Moto. So we had the charging points already. I had 2 charging points at my site at Scotch Corner. And at that point, anybody charging their vehicle would be sat there for a period of 2 hours. So whilst it was great for my Costa and everything else on site, I think we have come a long way. I saw yesterday that McDonald's have announced that they will be putting the rapid charging points in all of their sites and drive-throughs, working alongside Instravolt. So they're looking at kind of 80% charge in a 20-minute period. So when I think back to that initial implementation of those two at my services at Moto, we definitely have come a long way, but there's so many things to take into consideration. And like I say, I think the customer will guide the way. But yes, those A1 sites and your transient routes, they're going to be a big focus for us over the next few years.
Kurt, how are you looking from your point of view? How much charging have you got in your 10 sites currently, and where might I go?
I've held back on them at the moment because I think I'm waiting for it to settle down a little bit, because there seem to be different types of charging points out there and different powers and different connections, like the old Betamax and videos and years ago. You couldn't settle on one or the other. Now they settled on one. So I think I'm going to wait until the market settles and there's a bigger demand, because at the moment I don't think demand is there. And we're near Cardiff, South Wales. There are electric vehicles around here. Obviously, we've got buses and everything, but for my sites, I don't think. I'm just waiting, holding back to see the demand increase and also the technology stabilize to bring us one sort of charging point rather than multiple, which are there now. It's only the Tesla, I think, can go to any charging point and use any charging point, where some of the vehicles can't. They got to use a specific one, and that's what we've been told. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. But I'm just waiting for the market to sort of stabilize and standardize so anyone could come in and our chargers once I install them.
So much change, and that's a really, really good point. David, where does we talk about EV, we talk about fossil fuels. What about hydrogen? Where does that fit in your thinking? How much do you see that being a feature on a lot of BP sites in the future?
It's possible. I think there's multiple things we need to consider. I think we've started the journey on EV charging, rapid chargers onto our forecourts, and that's had a really good uptake on our 150 kilowatt chargers that we've got on sites. So we've got over 30 sites now that have that in place. I think from a hydrogen point of view, I think it's a bit of a wait and see as well. I think other types of fuels in the future, I think will also become again maybe an important factor for us to consider. But we still see fossil fuels being really key as well, but also EV in particular being probably the two mainstreams at the moment.
And then Nadine, what came up interestingly from BCG presentation was about thinking in terms of autonomous vehicles, also thinking about this being linked to last mile delivery, collection, those sorts of issues. So it's not just about how does someone's car get charged, or other issues related to that. Are you investing in thinking about that sort of click and collect offer and collection points for using forecourts as collection points as part of this change in the way people move and live?
Yeah, I mean, especially during the COVID-19, we've looked at a lot of the kind of click and collect. We've upped our food services. With regards to collection and working alongside Uber Eats. We've also looked at parcel deliveries. Kind of over the last kind of few months have been through the roof. So you permanently, and that's what retailers should be doing, is you're permanently thinking and trying to think ahead of the times and think how we're going to kind of we're going to tackle the situation, especially on your non-transient sites.
Yeah, I think exactly as you say, different sites, different decisions, won't there, depending on what the customer's going to be doing. Obviously, a lot of neighbourhood locations, customers might be charging at home, so actually maybe there's less of a factor there. But also people in smaller houses without drives and so on, they need somewhere else to charge. So maybe there's an opportunity for overnight charging and those sorts of those sorts of things as well. David, I'll leave the last word for you in terms of actually the point I raised with Nadine there about collections and about fitting with some broader changes in how people live autonomous vehicles. Is that part of the picture as far as you're concerned, plus the same set of problems?
Absolutely. I think we've really got to consider what the missions are for our customers. And, that's certainly been evident over the last few months that, particularly from trying to manage social distancing, safety, and I think that's going to stay important for a number of months ahead. But I think longer term, I think that convenience factor and the reliability of these types of services are going to be key. Last mile delivery has clearly been a major growth area for a number of businesses over the last sort of 12, 24 months, really. And I think options to pay and options to collect or have delivered convenience are going to become more and more an important factor for us. So click and collect, as an example, pre-order could be a Starbucks obviously had pre-order for a while. Many other retailers and food service areas are looking for that kind of convenience option as well. So I think, again, those things are still to play out for me over the coming months and years, but I think will become even more important factors as the market matures again in this space.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, look, there's so much to consider in this space. We could probably talk for another hour or two, but we're going to close it off there. We're going to take a break. We'll start again at 10:35, so please don't be late, about 10 minutes to go and get a cup of tea, whatever you need to do. We've already had a fantastic response online, lots of questions. All those questions will be picked up either in the breakout sessions or in the panel sessions. So thank you for those coming through. And thanks again to all our presenters in the first session, really thought-provoking stuff. So we'll close off there and we'll see you back here at 10:35. Thanks, everyone.
We love shopping in store, but it can be so frustrating. Research shows that 66% of us are dissatisfied by aspects of the in-store experience, yet 71% don't like online grocery shopping either. There's now an opportunity for a faster, easier, best of both experience. It's time to shop smarter. Introducing Ubermarket's multi-award-winning Scan, Pay, Go shopping app. Everything you need, all in one place. Yes, it's branded for stores, but here's our secret. We built it for shoppers. For a quick shop, just scan the barcodes, tap to pay, and you're good to go. For that bigger shop, our magic shopping list takes over. Create your list, tap to add offers, and the app rearranges it, guiding you straight to your items. See your spend, savings, allergens, and environmental impact all in real time. Bag your items as you shop, tap to pay, and go. Never wait in line again. It's fast, it's hygienic, it's secure, it's easy. So, it's great for shoppers. How about retailers? We'll bring your store into the future, integrating seamlessly with your systems without requiring any new hardware, future-proofing your stores and minimizing the need for checkouts. With AI tech and machine learning, we help you engage on a deeper level with your individual customers, sending them automatically personalized offers with touch points before, during, and after their shop. Our data proves that engagement on this level and eliminating friction increases footfall, store loyalty, and basket size, while decreasing your cost of sale. Ubermarket. It's time to shop smarter. Lines? Where we're going, we don't need lines. We love shopping in store, but it can be so frustrating. Research shows that 66% of us are dissatisfied by aspects of the in-store experience, yet 71% don't like online grocery shopping either. There's now an opportunity for a faster, easier, best of both experience. It's time to shop smarter. Introducing Ubermarket's multi-award-winning Scan, Pay, Go shopping app. Everything you need, all in one place. Yes, it's branded for stores, but here's our secret. We built it for shoppers. For a quick shop, just scan the barcodes, tap to pay, and you're good to go. For that bigger shop, our magic shopping list takes over. Create your list, tap to add offers, and the app rearranges it, guiding you straight to your items. See your spend, savings, allergens, and environmental impact all in real time. Bag your items as you shop, tap to pay, and go. Never wait in line again. It's fast, it's hygienic, it's secure, it's easy. So, it's great for shoppers. How about retailers? We'll bring your store into the future, integrating seamlessly with your systems without requiring any new hardware, future-proofing your stores and minimizing the need for checkouts. With AI tech and machine learning, we help you engage on a deeper level with your individual customers, sending them automatically personalized offers with touch points before, during, and after their shop. Our data proves that engagement on this level and eliminating friction increases footfall, store loyalty, and basket size, while decreasing your cost of sale. Ubermarket. It's time to shop smarter. Lines? Where we're going, we don't need lines.
I hope you're all back and refreshed and have got a cup of tea, whatever else you wanted to have. Thanks so much again to our speakers in the first session. And that session, of course, dealt with power and mobility. This is really the convenience part of that, which is obviously extremely important part of the equation. And we're going to try and tackle this in a number of different ways. We'll be hearing from our panel again. We'll be doing a tour of John Stevenson's store on in Teesside. But we're also wanted to show you a little bit, just a clip from a discussion we had a little while back. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, this isn't the first time we've been running events like this throughout the coronavirus crisis. We've been running webinars and discussions and panels virtually. And a couple of weeks ago, we pulled together a couple of the leading players in the forecourt sector, Steve Fox from Motor Fuel Group and Patrick Sewell from Sewell Group, to talk about their experiences of coronavirus and particularly how they're coming out of this crisis and trying to move back to a new normal, whatever that means. So here's just a clip. We're not showing the whole thing, but here's a little clip to give you a flavour of that discussion and a bit more input from some of those top forecourt retailers.
Steve, do you got any thoughts about how people might be using petrol forecourt stores and convenience stores into the future?
I think what we're trying to second guess, I think certainly in the next, whether it's 12, 18 months, I think that we think things like staycation is going to create a big opportunity because less people are going to go abroad, for certain. We do think that it's not that queuing at a supermarket, once you've had to go back to work or it's not quite as sunny, will you still want to do that? You will be prepared to do that. So through, not, horrible times, I wish that COVID-19 wasn't there. We think that this gain that certainly we've had as a business, we will hold on to, a high proportion of it. I mean, alcohol is just, going through the roof. And of course, this is not a pub open, a restaurant, etc., which is, is tragic for a lot of businesses. But even when that does open, and is capacity at 30, 50%, etc. So, we think you have to, this is nearly a plan day by day, and it's changing, but we've seen it settle without a shadow of a doubt in the last 3 or 4 weeks. But, it's great what Patrick's saying about, business is booming, but you've still only got probably 60% of your customers buying fuel at the moment. So as the country unlocks, is that shop business going to grow even further? So, like I was saying, when you think about supply chain, freezer space, etc., and all those challenges we've got to face, it's a we call it a high class problem at the moment.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Patrick, what's the some of the changes you think might make lasting changes for our sector?
I guess speaking again specifically in the forecourt sector, I guess we're well placed generally for the opposite ends of the spectrum of working in an office or working from home. I guess if you're a convenience store based in the city centre, then if you're going to be working from home, that's probably arguably not great if you're living in the suburbs. But from a forecourt point of view, where my stores generally are a little bit more in the suburbs, then the fact that you're working from home is an ideal opportunity. That if you're working home on a Friday, then one, you might just pop out to go and get a bit of fresh air and go down to the local subway, or to go and get something from a forecourt convenience store. Or secondly, the potential of further deliveries. We've been experimenting with deliveries. We haven't gone into it in a big way yet, probably because just the sheer scale and resource that the volumes we've been running at, we'd probably have to have twice as many people to be able to man it at the moment. But I do see a lot of opportunity looking forward to a lot more flexible solution for and I think that's always the case in retail, is that the customer will decide. We can try and shape it a little bit, but ultimately they will push it one way or the other. So if we can have choice of how people pay, there's obviously a big push in terms of maybe not wanting to queue up and pay with cash. I think some of that will come back again, to be fair. I think everything we talk about, it's going to be a hybrid mixture of it all. I don't think ultimately, to say, one direction is the only way it's going to go. It's going to be a bit of a hybrid.
Some brilliant insights there from Patrick and Steve, and now welcoming back our panel for even more brilliant insights, Nadine, David, and Kurt. I'm going to start with you again, Nadine, if I may, really. We talked earlier in the first session about some of the trends we've seen over the last few weeks, obviously extraordinary times. Which of those sort of trends do you think are likely to be enduring? Which are the things we've seen over the last few weeks, which we talked about earlier, Steve and Patrick talked about there? Which of those things are you starting to plan the business around a bit more?
I think there's actually a lot of categories that I think will stay strong. It's like Kurt said previously, customers have got used to coming into our sites and seeing the availability that's there. So when it comes to alcohol, me and my operations team have done quite a lot of work looking at ranges, using our retail analytics to look at what's selling, what's driving the huge alcohol sales, etc. So the customers know that they can come onto our sites and they can find all the flavoured vodkas and the flavoured gins, the cloudy cider, which has been a big hit recently, and the beer is available. So they also see that we have promotions on the same as the supermarkets. So whereas previously you'd have the odd few that would call in and get some cans on the way home maybe, but now if they're not going and doing a full weekly shop, I think that'll continue and they'll keep using our forecourts. I think again, the ambient part of the business, we could start seeing people call in and just get the odd bits, the bread, the eggs, etc. I think that will carry on. And I think for us, a big focus should be on, we've always seen tobacco as one of those categories where, you know, we see it as being a category that will decline over the years, and that's not what we've seen. Maybe people will start using us, you know, they're not going to queue up in your Morrisons and your Tesco's, etc. They're going to fall in at one of our forecourts and pick the tobacco up there. So another one would be barbecue product. We've had a fantastic availability of barbecue product. And then also matching that up with meat, working with Londis on various barbecue ranges, etc. So I think this has been good for us. I think customers, you know, like we've said, we've gained new customers, and I think we've got an opportunity to keep those customers.
Yeah, that's a huge question, isn't it? There's really interesting insights there. I think a couple of those points come to you, Kurt. Two of the things that Nadine said there, in your experience on. Number one is about range. So particularly Nadine talked about alcohol range and sort of more specialist products. How's that reflected in your business? And secondly, about tobacco, which we'll really talk about a bit more. So yeah, range and tobacco, what's been your experience? Where do you think that's going?
Well, as regards to tobacco, for the first time, we've noticed that people buying it in bulk. You know, like instead of buying 20 or 40, they're coming in for 100, 10, the crazy amount of cigarettes. We've never known that before. 20, 40, yes, but people are coming in by 100, 120. And, you know, because we are competitive on price, we don't premium price our tobacco, not as much as some forecourts. And we also find going to alcohol, again, and we got people coming in saying, we didn't realize, we've had a lot of people say, we didn't realize you sold all this. You know, because this is from new customers. They come in and say, wow, you know, what a fantastic store you got. We didn't realize you did that much of alcohol, and you know, you sell fresh meat, and you know, you sell a range of tonics and a range of this, and all the cigarettes. And we've been, you know, and I think we'll keep those people, or at least a good majority of them. As going forward, I think we just got to learn from this past experience and be a bit more adventurous, and you know, be more confident that we can compete with the big boys. And it's proof is in the pudding. You know, we've had a couple of months that people are now using us, and if we can just carry on and make sure we got well stocked and a good selection at a fair price, they can pop in, park the car. They haven't got a queue for 30 minutes or whatever. And I think it's positive for the future as long as we get it right. And another important point, I think, is the staff, because nobody's mentioned staff. I think we can do all we can to increase the product range, but we need to train the staff as well to look, you know, things are changing. You know, we are more of a retailer now, convenience, than we are a petrol retailer. That's there's an add-on now, as opposed to that was the major thing years ago, and the retail was an add-on, but it's switched around, especially over the last 3 months. So You need to train the staff that, you know, have a different approach to customers, you know, that they're now a main customer for us, and they're big spenders, and that's what's keeping the wheels going, you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'll pick up on two of those points really out of that. We talked about competition with the big boys, and we talked about Fresh. David, in your business, obviously partnership with M&S, big part of your business. So you'll see a particular angle on this in terms of how the customers responded in those stores, maybe versus other stores. Also picking up on Kurt's point there about colleagues in store, about how their role has changed, their perception, their motivation, their anxiety over this time. What's been your experience of that in the business as well? Take whichever one suits you going first on that. Colleagues and M&S.
I think one of the things, first thing is our customer loyalty data has really helped us to understand how missions have changed. So we used to sort of measure on fuel only, fuel and shop only. And I think to Kurt's point, you know, customers are now seeing the shop in much greater value than perhaps they previously did. So almost seeing through the forecourt into the shop and actually using us for those big shops. And from a colleague perspective, I think one of the biggest challenges for them over the last few months clearly has been their own safety, and trying to work out how do they replenish the shop safely, how do they serve customers safely. So that's been a really important factor for our store teams, and will continue to be for a while, I think. And that anxiety is certainly still there for our store team. So we've tried to do a huge amount in terms of just making sure that they're looked after, taken care of, and I think that's equally important for our customers as well. Those that see us managing social distancing well has been critical, and will continue to be critical for us. But beyond that, I think understanding your ranges, understanding the food offer, understanding the different missions, personalisation with customers. I think what I see in some of our sites where we have fantastic engagement with our customers, the regulars, the ones that come in, coffee that they want, they already know what they're going to buy for breakfast, they understand the routine. Some of those routines have been broken over the last few months, but hopefully some of those routines will come back. It'd be nice to see you back and those kind of things as people get more transient. But to pick up the point around categories, I think there's subcategories within that as well that we have to drill down into. So one of the interesting parts was around soft drinks, for example. We didn't have take-home soft drinks ranged in all of our stores, and it was one of the first things we did very quickly. Agile in doing that, we ranged it to every store and doubled our sales in that area to offset where the single-use drinks, the kind of the traditional linked to transient on the go, food on the go journeys was significantly down. So that helped us to offset that kind of decline. I think you have to look within the categories to work out, you know, what's going to do well, and our waste performance on the back of that has improved significantly as well, where we've had customers shopping so much more into our fresh food categories. It's been almost a challenge keeping it on sale for us, which is a good problem to have.
Absolutely. So thinking ahead then, I mean, we can sort of, any projections to the future is a bit of a fantasy, isn't it? You don't know what's going to happen. There's so many different factors. But let's assume we get back to a normal, back to trading without COVID as sort of the main underlying factor of everything. Assume we get back to that point. What is that? Where do you see the range in your stores being? I'll give you a chance to give a reasonable quick answer. I'll start Nadine, David, then Kurt. In terms of 10% greater range, 10% less range, or more radical than that either way. What's the range going to look like in an apple green going forward, Nadine, do you think?
I think there's quite a bit of work to be done on range, and I can see us looking at categories that we maybe haven't given as much focus to that we should give focus to. So when we look at things like the tobacco, the track and trace, the menthol ban, the menthol would have been around 14% of our overall business, but only 4% of that would have been complete menthol. You know, the introduction of the new products, for example, the cigarello, the leaf wrapped cigar with the click in, that's done extremely well for us. The Nordic Spirit, things like the little Rizzler cards to go in the packets has been incredibly popular. These are the things that we're going to be looking at moving forward, coming out of COVID. Categories that, as David was just saying about the drinks, minerals, what we class as minerals, were down. But again, the take-home drinks, we would be looking at that category. Take-home crisps, multi-packs of crisps, rather than the single packs. And again, confectionery, multi-packs of confectionery, etc. So I think it all needs looking at, and I think it's probably opened our eyes to think that it's not just COVID-19, we need to be doing that in the future.
Sure, there's those changes in the way, like exactly the opposite of what people were saying at conferences like this. People are always saying, oh, it's about food to go, it's about immediate consumption, the transumer, something I first heard from Apple Green, which is still a thing. Obviously, I'm not saying that's sort of stopped being a factor, but actually what's driven sales over this period of time has been a different type of consumer with different needs at that time. David, what do you see happening to your range? Are those take-home packs going to stay, do you think, longer term?
I think mixed. I think for me, demographic ranging is key. I think there's a piece there for the right range in the right location is probably the critical part. We certainly saw that evolution in certainly city centres in the Sainsbury's and the Tesco's, where years ago it would have been one size fits all. It's certainly moved away from that. Someone near a train station would have a much more transient offer versus that take home that we're talking about as well. So I think there's demographic part to that. I think optimised space. Space is critical when you've only got 3,000 or so square foot. It's always been a factor, and every item, every product needs to earn its right to be there, but also have a reason to be there as part of the shopping mission. So I think that might be a consideration going forward if we want to capture more of the grocery top-up shop. It's not just best purchase potentially in the future, which traditionally it has been for convenience retailers. And I think the other part for me is just understanding the trends that are out there as well. So we've learned a lot over the last few months and years around category trends, whether that's in the energy drink sector or plant kitchen type foods and waste foods. I think that they're equally important. We have the partnership with M&S, and that's a key factor for them in their food development at the moment as well. So it's about making sure we can make sure we can tailor our offer to make sure we've got innovation in there and try and stay ahead of the curve, which I think will be equally challenging, but also important and valuable for us in the future.
Yeah, there's trends happening away from COVID. Those trends haven't stopped necessarily, have they? Kurt, you've got 10 sites. How different, and David was talking about demographics, how different is the range and the offer across those different sites for you?
To be truthful, they're pretty similar.
Yeah.
I got transient sites and some urban sites, and it's pretty similar because then we can keep, if we have a manager go from one site to another, they still got the same range and same core range. But going forward, what this has brought us, I think, we need, because space at a premium, generally in forecourt stores because of their size, we need to prioritize that space more and look at sales data, review the sales data more, and which we've perhaps been guilty of not looking at in the past. So we need to look at the POS and say, look, we got that square meter there on that. It's hardly doing anything. Let's put something else there. Things we knew a long time ago, but I think this couple of months has made us realize how much more we can get out of this space that we have. Because you get the supermarkets, you got 10 Aldi's, 10,000 square feet. We may have 1,500, 2,000, some less than that. So we got to, we got to make sure every square foot in our store is making money and pay attention to it. Look at having something that's going out of date because it's been there for 3 months, 4 months. Why is that? We need to analyze that more and don't stock that again. And going forward, and I think that's a priority. It's brought home to us that we are an important partner of convenience people's shopping habits, and we want to keep them. So we got to give the public what they want at a fair price with a good service. And I think this last few months have made people realize, we're not just a petrol station, and we don't just overcharge for everything. There is a perception that service stations overcharge for products in the public eye. I think it's convenient, so we premium price. But I think if we get the range right and the price right, I think it should be good. There shouldn't be any problem.
We can pass that emergency into a genuine top-up option. Really important.
Yeah.
But look, we've so many changes taking place in the sector at the moment, and so we try to give you insights and perspectives from lots of different retailers. So fantastic panel discussion there. Fantastic to hear from Stephen and Patrick earlier. And now another angle we're going to bring is a film from John Stevenson, his Oxbridge store. We'll come back to the panel later on, but thank you very much, guys, for that. And now we'll jump into that panel and talk to John after this virtual study tour of John's site. Here we go.
Hi, my name's John Stevenson from Stevenson Forecourts. We're a family business based up in the northeast of England. We operate 3 forecourts with convenience stores on them. I've been asked a little favour off ACS, I love a favour, if I'd record a short movie just showing the measures we're taking with since the outbreak of COVID. So I intend just to have a little walk outside. It is quite windy. Show you what measures we've got on the forecourt, and then we'll head inside the shop to show you around there and what measures we've got in there. Okay, I'll see you outside in a bit. Hello. Right, we're outside our site in Northallerton just to highlight some of the measures we've got. So at every pump on every site, on every side, we have a sign that basically highlights the risk of potential contamination on the petrol nozzle handle and encouraging the use of diesel gloves, which we have there. And then as we walk across the site, heading towards our front door, we have signs. Other signs as you walk in, just saying basically if you're displaying the symptoms, then obviously please don't come in our store. And typically as we're filming a short video for ACS, the sign fell off this morning, caught behind the electric door, it's got crumpled up, but basically we're just outlining some basic measures inside. Just please keep 2 meters apart. Please don't handle things you don't intend to buy. Queue outside the boxes, use contactless. Don't come in if you have any symptoms. And then we head inside our store where we have floor stickers in the aisles, just reminding everyone 2 meters. We have signs on the aisles, just reminding about the 2 meters. As we head down towards the tills, we've got the 2 meter markers with the slightly worn out boxes now, actually, probably need to replace them on the floor. More signage encouraging the use of contactless. We have the screens at every till point. We were quite early with these. We saw what was happening in Ireland a couple of weeks before us, so we got on the case and put the screens up. Sanitizer probably going to be around for a long time. And we have our 1 minute 31. We have a timer. Every half hour reminds us to do a clean down. We have a coronavirus checklist, which is checked off and signed. And what it highlights basically is the touch points in the store, what should be wiped down, Costa screens, etc. And we've actually introduced a completely touchless parcel service now. So where we used to take the parcels and scan them, we actually just scan them with a gun and ask the customer to place them straight into the cages. We have this at all the sites by the tills. More signage, and I do believe, sorry, just let this customer past. All of our team were out on the floor. Haha, he's a model. Gary, can we have a look at the back of your jacket? So all the guys when they're out on the floor are wearing these. I'm just saying, please give us 2 meters. I think that's there's a bit of a queue. I think that's about it in relation to the store signage. Okay, see you in a bit. Right, everyone, that's my little COVID trip around our site done. Fairly sure we're all doing similar things. Take care and stay safe.
Thanks, John. Absolutely brilliant to see that, and it's a lot of brilliant. The timer and the checklist and so on, fantastic, and all those other things as well. So brilliant effort by you and by many retailers to tackle this, and amazing how quickly everyone responded. What's been the response from customers, John? How's this all gone down? Are they complying with the signage and new policies?
Yeah, a lot more positive than I thought originally.
Like I said in the movie, we were quite early with the screens. There was virtually none around that I'd heard of. It's just I'd seen in Ireland what was happening and been sent a picture example of the screen. So we were probably 2 weeks earlier than a lot more in the UK, or definitely around where I am, up in the world. And so we put them up, and I was thinking, I wonder if the customers, how they'll take this, if they'll see us as being more of a risky place. But actually, it was all really positive. They felt immediately safer. So yeah, I think it's all been positive. We've had feedback of how safe customers feel. We've also had a little bit of feedback on the busy weekends. Easter weekend obviously came through whilst this was going on. And some people, it was at some points of the day getting difficult to manage. So we had a big queue down the forecourt, and we had to direct that queue. It was quite a long queue around. So some feedback on that, just saying some people didn't feel as safe as they have other times, but there's not a lot we could do. You know, we were trying our best, and there's so many people turning up to get stuff. So, but yeah, generally, I think people feel safer that they're.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, I think you're never going to get in a small store and environment as well. There are only so many things you can do, but it looks like you're doing pretty much all of them. What's one thing that surprised you? Think about the business really over the last few weeks. What is one thing that surprised you with the COVID experience in terms of sales and how the business has performed?
We do, like Kurt said earlier, we are doing well. So we lost 80% of our fuel volume at one point, but our shop sales kind of added 50% quite quickly. At one point, the bank holiday hot weekend, we virtually doubled all of our store sales. And fuel slowly started to recover. So, while there is bad things happening, but we feel very lucky that we've done okay. We're about 75% of fuel volume recovered now. And our store sales we're still trading 50% up. I know we've gained some of this from the pub closures, because again, our alcohol sales are quite considerably up. And we'll lose them maybe not overnight when the pubs open, because people, I think it'll be slow.
I think it'll be a slow move back into hospitality, is my feel. It'll happen, but I think it'll be quite a slow movement back into booze sales, back into pubs and restaurants and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, it's good. It's we can't complain. The shops are busy, so all good.
And is there one thing you see as an enduring trend? Sort of from the last panel we picked up on this. What's exceptional to now, and what's actually going to be something that takes us into the future? Are there any of those trends you think are going to be more enduring?
The new normal, I think there'll be quite a bit of what we're doing in the new normal. I think the sanitizer will be around. I think the distancing will be around for quite a while. The screens, I think when I was putting them up initially, I thought they'd be there for 2 to 3 months. Who knows how long we'll have screens up now? Is it years? Is it? I'm not sure. So, but we've adopted certain things with the parcels. I think we will continue to use. We were taking them, handling them, scanning them, putting them back ourselves. But, we don't need to. So I think going forward, we'll get more of a permanent solution to that. So we can do a lot more things without actually having to touch.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, really important set of things. And just while you're here, what's your strategy on EVs, John? We obviously touched on this earlier in the day. What do you have charging on sites at the moment, and are you planning to develop that further?
We don't have any charging. Actually, we built a new site in 2018, and we applied for the electricity supply big enough for the EV. So we wanted 150 kVA supply, 100 for the site, 50 for the charge point. And the only power we could get was 117 kVA. So the charge point didn't go in, basically. So I think there's a lot of issues around that. That we're not really that prepared for anything to do with EV at the moment, to be honest. We in our part of the world, a lot of people have off-street parking. We're in town centre, suburban areas. We're not transient. So I think my thought now is we'd be quite late into the EV world to see what happens with other people and what they're doing. But I think that we've already experienced the electricity supply issue.
Yeah.
We're sitting and watching.
It's a really important point. Yeah, really important point. Going back to Ed's earlier presentation, you know, there can be obligations on businesses, but obviously they can only meet those obligations if they've got the electricity supply and other factors that allow them to offer it. So, John, thank you very much. I mean, brilliant tour around the store, really, really helpful, great contributions to the conference. Thanks for it, and great chat as well. So thank you very much, John. And now to introduce Will Broom from Uber Market, the founder and CEO of Uber Market, who are sponsors for today. We've seen their advert and the brochure, which I thought was great. And this really takes us on to a theme I want to discuss with the panel afterwards, which is about technology and the customer journey through stores. So really interested to hear now what Will's got to say about Uber Market and about how the customer will change the way they interact with our stores in the future.
Hello everyone, I'm Will Broom, CEO of Uber Market, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here at the ACS conference talking to you about reimagining the fuel forecourt, particularly actually at such a poignant, pivotal time within the industry, not just because convenience is now king, but also because of the obvious new normal of social distancing and everything that people have come to expect now in a seamless retail environment. So effectively, what I'm talking about today in reimagining the forecourt is that there is a massive opportunity for forecourts to become that go-to central hub, really, and an experience for fuel and convenience combined. Obviously, that's already in place, but there are all sorts of nuances to that and all sorts of things that make it not quite as convenient as it should be. And the big proviso here is convenience needs to be convenient. The forecourt has obviously the basics absolutely covered in terms of fuel and retail, but I think many of the pinch points and friction is absolutely exasperated, and that's because there are essentially two distinctly different missions. One is people buying fuel, one is people buying groceries and produce and the retail side, and of course some are doing both. And that causes all sorts of discord and friction and pinch points, and you know, you end up sort of queuing for fuel behind people with baskets, which is a pain, hence the pay at pump apps. But then there are issues there because the UX can be a bit challenging. I know, having used them myself, the first time I used them, it took me about 20 minutes to figure them out, and even 20 seconds is too long. So it's and although they're great when you can get them to work, it actually then probably stops you going into the store because actually, you know, you've achieved your mission on the forecourt and you've got no reason to go in because you don't want to wait in that queue, or you don't want to have the hassle of all the pinch points in there. So what we've done is created a sort of seamless turnkey, white labelable app solution, which links up the fuel and the retail, does all the wonderful things that we do on the retail side, from shopping lists to personalized offers, and totting up your total and all the rest of it, telling you where stuff is, one tap payment, but being able to link up the fuel and retail aspects together. So to realize this unique opportunity of the forecourt being the go-to hub, you've got to put the customer in control, remove all that friction, hyper-personalize the experience, which can be done entirely automatically through the retail side of what we do. For example, automate the loyalty. It's modular, so you can plug the loyalty in and provide one tap payment that seamlessly links up the fuel and the retail. Now, why is that so difficult? There are so many behind the scenes complications with doing that, but the good news is we figured all that out. We've worked closely with fuel companies and retailers to achieve it. But why can't you roll up to a forecourt, park at pump 3, jump out, fill up your car, launch the app, walk into the shop, scan a few items you want. As you're walking out, tap to pay for both fuel and retail, and it's just done, all in one place. There are a million reasons why, and we've looked at these challenges over the last few years, and we've overcome them and provided a seamless, affordable way of achieving all that. But I'll come on to that in a minute. And the other thing to mention is that electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular, obviously. So the forecourt needs to evolve. And that might as well start to happen right here, right now. People will plug in their cars, even on rapid chargers, 10, 15, 20 minutes. They'll need something to do. You need to communicate what offers and what benefits you'll have, or the customer will have to come into your forecourt. And guess what that is? That's all about the retail side, because the fuel side could be essentially much of a muchness. Obviously, there are loyal customers, but actually, if you give people a reason to come into the store, the chances are they'll do their fuel there as well. And so it's got to be a harmonious solution for both. Just to pick up on a few key stats here. 54% of people use a shopping list. It's very useful to have a dynamic magic shopping list that crosses things off as you go, because statistically people are going to buy more if they remember what they went in for in the first place, and then they'll buy incidental stuff as well if it's easy to do so. 47% of people, this is before coronavirus, would avoid self-checkout units because frankly they were deemed to be more trouble than they were, particularly if you've got more than 3 items. Obviously with COVID-19 now, people don't want to touch a keypad, not least or definitely not a grubby screen. Not that everyone's screens are grubby, but it's inevitable when thousands of people are visiting your forecourt. So essentially what you need to do is put the customer in control and put the till in their hand and communicate, use that really to communicate the offers and the benefits of going into the store and paying for your produce and your fuel combined. And probably the biggest stat of all here is that 17.5 million people in the UK, this is audited research we do nationally every year, want app consolidation. It's become an absolute mess when stores have a voucher app, a payment app, a click and collect app, a delivery app. You know, you chase a rabbit, you might just catch it, chase 2 and they'll both get away kind of thing. Too many apps, too much noise, none of them great, it's just not going to work. So you've got to have one app that does all or nothing. An end-to-end seamless app branded to your store or your fuel company forecourt is absolutely key. You have that affinity with customers, and we've come up with a solution to do that actually in 2 ways. We can either build a bespoke app and make sure that that's you know, available to you and your customers, or we can take our entire code base and repurpose it and sort of present it on a silver platter and embed it into an existing fuel app. So you have all this wonderful retail technology at your fingertips, all in 1 or 2 taps. So very important. This is the familiar site. The image on the right is probably the most key. Some people are buying, have baskets full of stuff. Some people don't. 2 people with baskets and not fuel kicked their baskets aside and just left this queue and didn't bother buying their groceries because the queue was too long. There are self-checkout units there, but they're always, you know, broken or piled up or people not wanting to use them. So that's, it doesn't really solve that problem that much, although there is definitely a place for self-checkout and we've made sure our app's compatible with that too. And on the left, this is a more post-COVID scenario where you've got mad rushes and it's just exasperated and accentuated the situation of huge queues on forecourts and inefficiency, and therefore people not going into the store because it's just more trouble than it's seemingly worth. So what a forecourt app must do, very simply, is cover the entire fuel and retail journey in one place. And there's nothing out there that does that at the moment effectively, except for obviously what we've designed specifically for it. You can, you know, all the features that you might want to use in a store, writing a shopping list, sharing lists, being guided to your items, which is just convenient even in the smallest of stores. It rearranges your list and helps you navigate. You scan as you shop with a very simple, intuitive way of scanning, so it crosses things off as you go, delivers offers and promotions direct to your phone, which get more and more personalized the more you shop, so there's more reasons to go back to that particular forecourt, which is absolutely key. It's modular, so we can plug in loyalty systems and cards. We can link up, as I said, with fuel payment systems. We have lots of our own gateways. We're integrated with all the majors, but we can integrate with any, obviously, and include that. And delivers a full VAT receipt at the end, which has its own nuances on fuel, and that needs to all be taken into account as well. So it just, for the customer, they don't care how this works. It just needs to be, you fill up your car, you look at your screen, oh, there's a half price on a bottle of wine and a free croissant if I go into this store, whatever the incentive might be, even if the incentive is just convenience. Walk in, scan, pay, add pump 3, let's go. Now we do have also, in terms of all the retail benefits for the customers, which are obvious, for the forecourt, it's all about reducing overheads, increasing your capacity, collecting lots of behavioural data to communicate with customers to entice them back to your forecourt as a destination, not just a place for fuel. It future-proofs the forecourt and means people will come back and choose you over anyone else, hopefully, and that's the idea, and gives them every reason to do that. Payment needs to be flexible. You can't just restrict people to one way of paying. Someone might want to go up to the till, have done everything in their shop, scanned everything, scan a QR code, and want to pay with their card. It's obviously much easier just to tap to pay in a tillless capacity, but you don't have to do that. You can pay even with cash if you want to accept cash, although that's increasingly rare these days. So you have to be completely flexible and open, just so that people can use the app in whatever way they want to use it, and it means that there are no barriers effectively. We do have age verification built into this, and I know the ACS have been instrumental in looking at this and lobbying and pioneering for some sort of slick procedure for restricted items, whether that be alcohol, lottery, whatever else it might be. And we do have an embedded solution with some people that we feel are the best in the business, and who are very specialists in this area, and it means that you have this seamless approach, so you're not discouraged from buying restricted items. It's all done with facial recognition and age verification built in, and this is not mainstream yet, but may well be very soon, so we're fully prepared for it and ready to go. It will absolutely become the norm. Again, coronavirus seems to have accelerated things by a good couple of years anyway. We've been called the world's most sophisticated retail apps. That's great, but it all has to come down to two missions. You either hit scan and off you go, or you hit list and you build a list built out of free writing your list, whatever you might want, adding things from departments in the store and categories, or scrolling through and tapping to add personalized offers which are communicated to you via in-app messaging, which is very important because that's targeting customers with relevant things at the time they want them, and it's all done by our AI algorithms, which I think are very important. So in summary, what we can do, and there will be others out there, and of course some people are doing their own things as well, but what we can do is we can either build a bespoke app branded to the fuel company or to the retail outlet that will just seamlessly work, or we've figured out a way to have a complete, effectively a software development kit, where our entire code can be packaged up and delivered on a bit of a silver platter to the developers at the fuel company and embed it in their app, and suddenly their app is very quickly, I mean, I'm talking, if they did it now by September, enabled across thousands of stores, where you just have this extra button which is linked, the retail side, and links up all the retail functionality with the fuel functionality seamlessly with one central payment point, all tapped through the app, and it's a very, very quick, seamless solution to bring all this together and entice people to the forecourt and use the retailer or the retail side to really enhance the fuel side and vice versa. And so the two work in harmony rather than slightly fighting against each other, and people being either forced to pay at pump and drive off, or go into the store and stand in a queue. This solves all that and brings it all seamlessly into one place and allows that forecourt retailer to communicate with their customers on a daily basis before, during, and after their shopping experience. And I think that is the future of the forecourt and the way things are definitely going. So if anyone would like to discuss potential solutions with us, or get any more advice, or look at our research, we publish something called the Retail Trends Report as well every year. We'd be delighted to hear from you, and I'm sure we could help, and we can do it quickly and super affordably, and that's the whole idea, and what we've invested millions in getting the solution together for. So thank you very much, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thanks very much indeed, Will. Always great to hear from you about this very important topic around technology and how it's going to be changing our businesses going forward. I wanted to pick up. I'll start with you, David, if I may. The general point, you may have some specific comments on the Uber market, but more of the general point about technology in the business. Where's the investment going? What problems are you looking for technology to solve in the business going forward?
I think a lot of it's been covered by Uber market, but we're definitely on this journey with BP. We launched our own app, BP Me, to pretty good success actually, enabling at the moment fuel payment for our customers. We've since added BP Me Rewards as well, so it's a link in there to loyalty for us, and that's been really, really useful, not just from the data perspective, but I guess it links into the technology around data, driving decisions, customer data is going to be even more important for us as we go into the future. But the frictionless checkout, absolutely. One of the reasons why we built the app in was because we recognised the fact that there's different missions that are coming into the shop, and there's almost that fast lane versus the kind of the slow lane. They do a huge amount of browsing in a convenience store, but those are there to do a kind of a larger shop. Get a coffee maybe as well. That takes time. It's always been a challenge of trying to manage that kind of queue into the store around serving coffee, where do you serve it, how long do you have to wait, all those kind of things. So pre-order will become a really important part of that as well, in terms of being able to pre-order what you want, be able to pick it up either from a night pay option or from the store itself. It just helps to kind of keep the flow and the footfall going through the store, and that's been particularly important, particularly with the social distancing and trying to manage queues into the stores recently. So I think that has, I think Mark's right, that acceleration has certainly happened and got us thinking quicker and faster around what's next and what's helping our customers now and what will continue to help our customers going forward as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm picking up on that and what Will said. Coming to you, Nadine, the customer journey for a forecourt now. I mean, I suppose that, you know, a few years ago, it was someone, they pull up in a car, they buy their fuel, they come into the shop, they buy some stuff in the shop. And now that obviously still happens in millions of cases, but that customer journey is changing, isn't it? How are you imagining that developing into the future, and how does technology help you to influence and manage that customer journey?
Well, as David says, we're working alongside BP with BP Me. That's been very successful for us. It's a great app. I'm part of the ACS leadership program that I'm currently involved in the moment. So we've looked into this in quite some detail on that program, and also part of a panel working alongside the senior ops over in Ireland, and looking at various options. Obviously through COVID, I was kind of looking at Snappy Shopper, and for me, the main thing to come out of that would be getting our price file right, ensuring availability. We've got such varied sites. Which sites would you put it in? Which sites wouldn't you? Where will it work? So again, I'd be interested in the feedback really from other retailers, and going forward, once we're moving again and back to pre-COVID, it will be something that we'll be looking into. I think with regards to food, we'd be looking at coffee apps so that people can actually place orders for coffee at pumps. So when they go to pay for the fuel, they can go to the Costa, pick up their coffee. They can pre-order. We're looking at kind of the click and collect with Subway to see whether or not that would be something where they can place their order for the sandwich and don't have to wait for that to be made. So there's various things that we would want to do in Apple Green, and it was something that we were really looking into at the beginning of this year, and we'll continue to do so going forward.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating area. Kurt, you'd have seen the customer journey change from probably being all about fuel to fuel and shop, and then as you found over the last few weeks, people just going to the shop a bit more often. How do you see that changing? Are you going to bring in more technology into the business to manage some of those changes?
Obviously, that's the way things are going, but I think it's primarily for the younger generation at the moment, because like Nadine said, we got various different types of sites. But we also have a lot of customers and build up relationships with our cashiers, and that's why a lot of time where they use us. We find that's very important in the business. Whereas, and they wouldn't want to use an app, but they like to come in, they have a quick chat, they're familiar with the person, they have a quick chat, and they come out, and that's why we get a lot of customers. There's obviously a place for apps too. I'm not sure you could order coffee at the pumps because they're not supposed to use your phone, are you? Nadine, I'm not sure, when you're at the pumps filling up. But I think going forward that there's definitely a space for it. But I think, I would like to ask David, the BP app, is that successful at the moment? How much success have you had with that BP app? Are people taking it up?
It was slow. Yeah, initially it was slow. I think COVID has definitely accelerated it. I think that touch point of the contact, again, another way to pay. They don't want to wait outside the shop. So that has definitely accelerated the use of BP app. And I think it's important for us that we capture that actually to make sure that we do it. But also continue to develop the app as well, because it can open up so many more opportunities for us in the future. And I think that's the beauty of a well-built app. Actually, it gives you a foundation from which you can build that technology onto it and bolt on sort of new functionality with it as well. And I think that's the key for me around improving technology as we go and it evolves, because it does move so fast.
For me, I think probably I'll tag on with the bigger companies and take on their expertise when they produce these apps, and I will introduce it into my company because they're the big players. So I'll just use them as a benchmark. to go forward and see what they are doing, and to promote my business the way I and copy it. But I think the important thing with sites for this app is parking. We must have a lot of parking. That's crucial, I think, in this time. We've got more people home shopping, spending more time in store, parking, perhaps charge their car, like we just said, earlier on. But technology is here and it's fantastic, and we just got to go with it and introduce it to the business to improve the business.
Strikes me that one of the things that's going to really change is the sort of linking with other technologies and other connected devices, notably cars. So the more that it can be integrated into, your main console in the car, that you're ordering things off, you're pre-ordering 5 minutes away, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Probably where this is going to start to go. Where's the last few minutes? So I want to just bumpy few months, but I think an incredibly positive sense we're getting from everyone during the conference. So I'm going to start with Nadine, David, and then Kurt, and just really ask you to give us to send us into the breakout sessions with a reason to be cheerful, with a positive message about the forecourt sector right now.
Well, I think for me, we've got a lot to be positive. I think we've gained new customers. I think it's given us a chance to look at the retail in our sites, to reconsider ranges. I think one of the biggest things for me to come out of this last 4 months is our teams on site, my regional managers, the people that have supported to me in Applegreen through the last 4 months. We've not had a single site closed. Our teams have got themselves out of bed in the morning, got themselves there, overcome everything that that has been given to them, and I think it's really positive. It's definitely opened up my eyes to the great people that we have in our sites.
Fantastic, great thing to finish on. David, reasons to be cheerful.
Thank you, please. Reasons to be cheerful. I think I used to think back to my supermarket world, and those that used to got the haves and the have-nots. Those that had an online business, those that had a convenience business. I think for convenience, I think there's so much opportunity out there for us. Whether it's EV charging, whether it's mobile technology, whether it be ranging, as Nadine rightly says. I think we're very well placed to get after a number of emerging trends and be in a really good place to support our customers going forward. So I think lots of reasons to be cheerful in that respect.
Good. Reasons to be cheerful. You can sing this one, maybe. I'm not sure.
Part 3. For me, I think it's taken COVID to make it real. As sad as COVID is, and I hope it goes as quick as it comes. Though, having said that, it has been good for the forecourt industry. You can't get away from it. I mean, years ago, I remember that forecourts were, they were the big multiples coming in, taking all our fuel sales, and the big Aldis and the Lidls and supermarkets taking our sales. And we were wondering at one time, is there space for forecourts in the market? Because we got 20,000 at one time. I think we're down to 8.5 now. So this last 3 months, I think, has made us all realize that the forecourt is a great business, and we've got good locations, generally where people can park, whereas the corner shop generally has WL lines outside and there's nowhere to park. So that's always been a problem. But this last 3 months has opened everyone's eyes. Forecourts are a great business to be in, as long as you got the right offer. And it's great, you got a good staff, because my staff have been fantastic, I got to be honest. We give them all I had sanitizers. I went down to a place in Southampton and picked a load of sanitizers up, a medical that hospitals use, and put it all throughout the stores, and proper wipes and gloves and protective masks, did all that for them. And they've paid in dividends. I've given them bonuses because they've been so good over the last 3 months and come into work, like Nadine said. I've appreciated their input, because without them, you can't, you haven't got a business. So that's it, really.
Great point to finish on. Great point to finish on. And just for me, then, I'm going to talk about the panel sessions, or the breakout sessions in just a second. But I would like to just really thank the panel, Nadine, David, and Kurt, for some fantastic insights. We haven't done this before, having a sort of standing panel commenting on each session. I think it worked well, but do give you feedback, everyone. But obviously, you wouldn't be able to do that without that sort of commitment from Nadine, David, and Kurt. So we really appreciate your time and insights, and loads of fantastic things that I've learned. So I hope everyone else has as well. So thank you very much. And we're not going to let you let you go back to your day job quite yet, because we've got the breakout sessions which you're all taking part in. So thank you for that as well. I'll introduce those breakout sessions now. So it should be very simple, which is simply that at the bottom of the screen you should see links to 4 different Zoom sessions, and you can click on one of those. Room 1 is Boston Consulting Group and Nadine from Apple Green, and to be Stuart and Tony from Boston Consulting Group, and then Xavier's joining the second session with Nadine in there as well. So that's the first session. You can talk about some of those issues. You can talk about whatever you want, but obviously we're talking mainly about some of those future of power and mobility that we talked about in that session. Room 2 is GridServe. We don't have Jerry, but we have Natalia and Baz from GridServe, along with Kurt, talking about those issues raised in that presentation. Then in room 3, we have Will, who you've just seen from Ubermarket, with David Perkt from BP from the panel. So a discussion there, maybe more focused around technology and some of those issues. And then in room 4, we've got Ed, who gave the first presentation all that time back about a couple of hours ago, from ACS, and with John Stevenson, who gave us that great tour around his site in the northeast. So 4 sessions there. We'll have an ACS person in each session. You can click on any of those for the session you want to go in. Now, each session lasts 25 minutes. So when you click, it opens up a new Zoom meeting. Then we'll have a switch around at 12 o'clock, so you can come out of the session you're in and join another one. So you get a chance to be in 2 out of the 4 in total. Really encourage you to stay and take part in this. I think, as always at conferences, you get more out of these informal discussions even than the great sessions we've had so far with the more formal content. So please do take part fully and take part in both. So I think we now should have those 4. So room 1, Boston Consulting Group and Apple Green. Room 2, GridServe and Kurt. Room 3, Ubermarket and BP. And room 4, Ed and John from Stevenson's group, taking part in those. So those 4 options should come up. Click on whichever one you want to go into. It opens up a new Zoom meeting. So please do that and take the opportunity to network and engage in that group. And that should be hopefully a really good discussion. I've had a load of questions come through, a lot of which some of which I've asked, but some of which we've really saved for these networking, these breakout sessions. So you can raise them in a slightly more discursive way, hopefully. So you've got opportunity to ask all those of the speakers. As I say, you can take part in 2 sessions as part of that. So yeah, click on one of the 4 links at the bottom of the screen, and that should take you into the meeting that you want to go into. I'm going to say the sessions again, just as everyone starts to get their head around that and start to click on, so everyone gets that. So number 1 is Boston Consulting Group and Apple Green. Room 2 is GridServe and Kurt. Room 3 is Ubermarket and BP. And room 4 is Ed and John Stevenson. So hopefully that will you'll find all of that working.